Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Today I have the honor of introducing our guest speaker as part of our Chief Executive Officer Speaker Series, and from my perspective, I hold the Crowley Endowed Chair of Entrepreneurship, so I'm pleased to note that he's also a serial entrepreneur, which for those of you that don't know means that he started lots of companies. Ryan Westwood is not only an executive and an entrepreneur, but he is also an award-winning author. He has written for Forbes and for and for Wall Street Journal, and is presently the CEO of Simplus. And I'd like to have you welcome him today. He has come a long way to speak, and we're so very happy that he's joined us.
Man, this is awesome. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the characteristics or the things that I think it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. So I remember about 7 years ago, I was building a business, and as we were building the business, I stopped and I was like, man, this is kind of sucking right now. I am working my butt off. I am burning through all my savings, and I'm probably not going to be able to pay my mortgage. Why am I so bad at this, and what does it take to be really successful at it? And my business, there was about 100 employees at the time, and we were in an attic. So it was a wood floor, and it was an attic. So at times I would have to hunch over because the ceiling was so low, because we wanted to keep our rent costs down to get this business started. So I remember coming out, and I'm kind of crunched over, and I smell coffee and all these young employees, these college students, and I'm like, why am I doing this? There's like 100 people here, and we're not making any money. We're not making any money. What am I doing that I'm not being successful enough at this? And so I was like, I'm going to go on a crusade to figure out what it takes to really be a successful entrepreneur. What does it take to launch a business that's going to be a big success? So what I did is I called Dun & Bradstreet, and I said, can I get 100,000 names of entrepreneurs? I don't want people that have joined a company later. I don't want people that became the CEO after it was 20 million in revenue. I want the person who started the business. I want the founder. I want to know who that person is, and I want a list of them, and I want to survey them. So the next 2.5 years, I took this list of 100,000 founders, and I tried to go through and figure out what it was that made an entrepreneur successful. This is me in this office. When I talked about the addicts crunching down, I'm literally hunching here because there's an addict that's weighing us down in this business. The 100,000 entrepreneurs we surveyed, the other criteria is they had to have had $1 million in revenue. So when I got the feedback, I thought, I want to have somebody who's built something successful. I want to know an entrepreneur that's built a business that really has become something, and I want their feedback on what it took. If they were to look back and say, this is how I got there, this is how I became successful, what was it? We got 2,700 responses over the 2.5 years. And of those responses, there were 5 traits that were so predominant among those successful entrepreneurs, I wrote a book about it. So these are the 5 characteristics that I believe, and from these 100,000 entrepreneurs that we surveyed, these were the things that they said were what made a successful entrepreneur. One of the things that was interesting is these were most predominant among entrepreneurs with 15 or more years of experience. So these were not just founders, but these were founders who had a profound amount of experience building businesses. They said that this is what it takes. So I'm going to talk about those traits, and then I'm going to explain some of the experiences I've had specifically of trying to build a business and how it relates. So here we go. Number 1 reason an entrepreneur is successful, and this was over 65% of the top entrepreneurs on their own. We didn't even give them options. They just said vision, vision, vision. It came up constantly. among the successful entrepreneurs. You have to have a vision. You have to know exactly what you want. If you don't know what you want and you don't have a big vision, how are you going to inspire anybody to commit to it and follow it? I personally, in my businesses, I've been a part of businesses as an employee, and if the guy running the business is like, yeah, I do this, but I also have this other side business, and I have this other side business, how do you feel about it? How committed are you to that one business? If the CEO's not committed, how are you going to be committed? So they have to have a vision. Have you guys been, as employees, when you go to work for a job, and when you get to that job, it's their job to inspire you. It's their job to give you something to do every day that you're excited about. I've been to jobs where I'm like, literally, I have no idea what it is we're trying to accomplish. I get a paycheck, but what are we actually really trying to accomplish? And I call it your big, hairy, audacious goal. You got to have your BHAG. You got to have a big, hairy, audacious goal, something that gets people out of their seat. Otherwise, why are they going to follow you? If you're going to be that founder, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be an executive of a department, why am I going to listen to you? Why am I going to follow you? Why am I going to work my butt off every day? Why am I going to make these sacrifices if there's not a big vision? A big vision for whatever it is that you're doing. So in my current business, I want to build the biggest enterprise consultancy based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. So we have a lot of companies, we have a strong economy, but I want to build the biggest enterprise consultancy. So when my employees come in the door every day, they know my goal is not to play it small. I don't want to build a cute little business. I want to build something special. I want to build something where companies like Deloitte or Accenture come in one day, and there's a presence in Salt Lake City because of what we built as a startup. That's something that I want to see happen and transpire. Now, there's been times where there was a business recently we went in to look at to acquire, and I asked the CEO, what's your vision for the company? He said, get my kids through high school. Is that getting any of you excited about working there? Get my kids through high school? Really? You think you're going to inspire people to build something special? You think I'm going to wake up every morning and go, man, I can't wait to go to work for that guy? I mean, the thought going through my head is, the reason we're here is to get your kids through high school. That's not going to get me excited. So when you're thinking about what it is you want to do, make sure that your vision is big enough to inspire people. The other side to that is, make sure you're realistic about what it is that how big your vision is. Because if you're committing to a humongous vision, you're going to understand there's going to be some sacrifices. There's going to be some late nights. There's going to be some time traveling. There's going to be some times away from your family. And if your vision's that big, if you're not committed to a big vision, that's fine. Build a business that's a family business that has some nice cash flows, and be real about that. But if you're trying to build a big company and inspire people, then you've got to have a big vision. Now, the one thing I'll say is I haven't got to the point, and the big vision I have for this business didn't happen overnight. My first business, the big vision I had was build a multi-million-dollar company. I thought, if I could just get a couple million in revenue, I will feel like I'm a rock star at this. And that was the big vision. Then it was, you know what, if I could just get a company in double-digit millions, then I'll feel like a rock star at this. Then it was, if I can raise enough capital to fund the business, to be able to do exciting things, then I'll feel like a rock star. And so what happens is your vision, don't get scared if your vision right out the gate isn't just huge. Let it build. You know, you give yourself a vision that you really feel like you can do and you can inspire your people to do, because you really do have to be committed to it. When I was in college, I had 3 buddies, and we used to all talk about, man, when we get out of here, we're going to be entrepreneurs. We're going to be so awesome. And it was interesting. I had one buddy who said, let's go do this. Let's go 100%. Let's go all in and build one business. I had another buddy who was all talk. He was always talking about how he was hanging out with Lionel Richie and how he was the man and how he was going to do all these cool things. But he never really did commit to any business. He kept just working as an employee and never really did commit. The other guy, he took a job, but he worked on the business at night. So he would work on it at night gradually. Now fast forward 10 years. Me and Dave, the 2 that started that business, who fully committed to our vision, we built 2 Inc. 500 companies, and we're on our 3rd, and we're about to announce in September an acquisition and a funding round from Salesforce.com of $7.5 million. That's happened because we just went all in. So my advice is don't just create a vision, but commit to it and immerse yourself in it. You have to immerse yourself in that vision, because the person who's like, yeah, I'm going to do it part-time, I'm going to do it on the side, the person that's saying, that's talking a big game but then still working their job, if you're going to build a business, you have to commit to that vision. Now, that doesn't say that in the early days it's not a bad idea to have a part-time job to pay your bills as you build up, but eventually you got to commit to the vision. You got to go all in on building whatever it is your dream is to build. So vision's my first one. Now, let's talk about some ways that you guys can improve your vision for things. One of the things I've done is I've asked my employees, I've broken them up in groups at different times because I want them to buy into my vision, right? So I broke them up in groups and I literally had them pretend they were on 60 Minutes. And I said, okay, you're on 60 Minutes. Tell me what Simplus, my current company, what it has become. You're on 60 Minutes, you've done something really special, here's the interview, you're up. Tell me about it. Put yourself in those shoes. Get yourself, so Larry King's in front of you, whoever it is, whoever you see yourself being interviewed by, you're sitting in front of him and he's saying, what did it become? What did it become, Ryan? What is your business? And what it helps you do is start to visualize and think bigger and think about a vision that you're really inspired by, that you want to commit yourself to. Then I talked a little bit about this, but have the courage to have that vision, but give yourself the time to gradually get there. The other thing I will say to a lot of people is we do not have nearly enough quiet time in society today. Having times to be still and just think is so critical. We have these mobile phones that will give you a rush the second you need one. You're sitting there, 2 seconds of boredom, oh, got something in my pocket, I'm ready to go. Guess what? That doesn't give you time to think about your vision, to think critically, to get your mind in the right state, to really build something. And even if you're a vice president of a department and you're trying to build out your department and you need that time to build that vision, you really need to take vacation time, take quiet time. You know, if you have 1 hour to just sit and turn off your device and think about whatever it is you want to do with your life and think critically about the things you need to improve to become the person that you want to become, you need to take that time. You have to have times of just total stillness. You'll be amazed at what you can accomplish by taking still time to just think, meditate, and explore what it is you want to do with your life. If you don't take the time to do that, how the heck do you know where you're going? At the end of the day, you might just be working real hard, but are you really working on that thing that you really want in your life? So you have to stop and think about that. And at times in my life, that's been hard for me because I'm pretty, I would say, high energy guy. And so a lot of times I like to be in the mix. So for me to shut it down and take some time to think, I think has been one of the most critical things for my career. And if you really want to make it, you need to take that time for yourself to think. Okay, so you've heard the quote, the harder you work, the luckier you get. The second piece to this was work. So all these different entrepreneurs, they just said, okay, vision was big, but hard work is second. Now, when you think about that, it seems like, okay, yeah, I know that. But how many people these days are getting involved in, you know, people are MLM pyramids or whatever it is. The thought of getting rich without working hard is very appealing, right? But the reality is the way to build a business, the way to become ultimately successful is work your tail off. For example, today I'll be here, then I'm going to drive 6 hours to another city. I have meetings, then I go to bed, then I drive 2 hours to another city, then I fly across the country. I do that, I work my butt off because I'm so committed to the vision of what I'm trying to do and what I'm building. So sometimes you're just going to have to work super hard, and there's no way around that. If you have something you want and you really want to accomplish it, that's just going to be the way to get there. Let me tell you a story. I was building this company called PC Care Support. It was technical support. Essentially what we did is we provided computer support to consumers. And one day we were sitting around, it was me and a couple other founders, and we're like, man, we have zero marketing budget. We have no cash. How are we going to market our business and pick up more customers for technical support? How are we going to do that? And so we're sitting around and we finally come up with the idea. What we're going to do is we're going to go trade our service, because what we have is our own work. We can fix some computers. I had a couple partners that were much better at it than me. They're usually fixing my computer. But that's what we had. We didn't have cash, but we could fix some computers. So what we did is we traded. We went to a radio station. We said, we'll fix all your computers, we'll maintain them, we'll support them if you'll run some ads for us. So that's what they did. So we went in and we did a contract with them to manage their computers. And in doing that, they started running ads. So we, as these naive young entrepreneurs, we were like, holy cow, our business is going to blow up now because they're running radio ads on us in this tiny local network of people. And so we're sitting there and we get, there's these services that you can get. Phone booth, My One Voice. These are phone services that make it appear like you're a bigger company than you are. Basically what it is it'll go, press 1 for sales, press 2 for customer service. And all of them, it was funny because at this time it was me and 2 other guys. So they'd go, press 1 for sales. It'd be the CEO, it'd be me. Press 2 for customer service. Yeah, that was still me. Press 3 for technical support. Yeah, that was still me. But it was forwarding to my cell phone at home, right? But it looked more professional. And so I was sitting there on my phone. I'm like, man, the radio's playing our ads. They're going to call and call and call. Guess what? No calls. Nobody called. And then about a week later, my phone rings, and I'm like, holy cow, this is a call, it's coming in, this is somebody who wants our services. I get on the phone, and it's this older lady. And she says, I heard your ad, I'm interested in your technical support. So I spend about a half hour on the phone with this lady, walking her through everything, trying to help her, getting her computer connected. We fix her computer over the internet, and I'm super excited, but I'm thinking, holy cow, for $15 a month, that was a lot of work. I mean, I was on the phone for a solid hour, going back and forth, trying to explain to a 70-year-old lady how to get to Google is not easy. And so at times it was extremely just frustrating. And I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to employ a lot of people at $15 a month if it's this hard to get one? So we go back to the office, and I start thinking, okay, what I'll have to do is just knock on doors. So I start 8 o'clock, I'm knocking on doors for 10 hours a day in downtown Salt Lake City, knocking on doors, one door after another, trying to sell technical support. And I have one office that we all meet in, tiny little office, because we can't afford anything more. And I get this call, and it says, hey, this is Jeff Kohler with Jab Broadband. I want to buy your company. And I get this voicemail, and I'm like, you want to buy my company? I was thinking, does this guy know I don't have a company? This is nothing. I can't even pay my own salary. If I showed this guy the profit and loss statement on this business, he would vomit. There's no way he would purchase this company. So what am I going to do? How am I going to make this into something? And I start talking with him, and what this guy is he is the chief development officer of the largest wireless internet service provider in the country. So it's a wireless ISP, or internet service provider, and what they were trying to do is add a technical support service. So when you have your internet for $5 or $10 a month, you can also get technical support, right? So he was looking for companies in the space to acquire. And I convinced him that, hey, maybe it makes more sense to partner, and let's see if maybe you could refer customers, your internet customers who have issues, to us. And he said, you know, I'm willing to experiment with that. Let's try it. And what we found is that people that had technical support issues, especially in that 60 to 80 range, they can't tell the difference between an internet problem and a computer problem. So they may have 10 viruses, and they bought the computer at Costco 5 years ago, and that thing doesn't have enough RAM to do anything, and they're still cussing out their internet service provider. It's all the internet's fault, right? So what they would do is, if the ISP identified the problem and realized it wasn't an internet problem but a computer problem, they would transfer transfer the customer to us. And what we found is that people weren't, a lot of times they weren't, when they had a technical support issue, they weren't calling tech support. They were calling their internet service provider. So they started to forward a couple customers, and we realized there was a big opportunity. So they agreed to do a partnership with us. And I asked, why did you call us? How did you get a hold of us? And it ties back to that old lady that I had that phone call with. She thought I was really, really nice. So guess what? She called her son, who happened to be the CEO of the largest wireless internet service provider. The two lessons. One, I could have given up because I didn't have a marketing budget, right? I had nothing to build a business. I had no cash to my name. But I didn't. I started doing trade and making it happen. I just kept working at it, right? So if you Google how to start a business with no money, the #1 link that comes up is an article I wrote in Forbes about how to do it with all these techniques, because I went through it for so long building a business with no money. If you say, I don't have any cash, but I really have this dream and I want to build it, I've written an article with all kinds of different things that you can do to build your business, even though you may not have cash, to eliminate that excuse and give you the opportunity to create the dream you want to create. So he calls in, we get this partnership, and the next thing that goes through my mind is, holy cow, these calls are going to start coming through, and I don't have the people to handle this. And he calls me up and he says, hey, we passed on this little company that's doing like 50 million in sales to do it with you. And I'm thinking, we have like $10,000 in sales. You passed on a little company that's done 50 million. And he goes, and we're doing this partnership with you, but we want to come out to Salt Lake and tour your office. So I'm like, okay, next act, here we go. So I literally called my mom, my dad, my brothers, my friends, everyone. I said, hey, on this time at this day, I need you to sit in the cubicle. So we got cubicles. We went and we got cubicles off of Craigslist. We hauled them in. We stayed till 4 o'clock in the morning. We set the cubicles up. I mean, this isn't pretty. This is real entrepreneurship, guys. It's not like it's the, you read in TechCrunch or Wall Street Journal these really cute stories, and that's really nice, but this is what happens for real that gets you to that point. So we're building those cubicles one after another. We get phones in, we get computers. We bought computers that were on consignment as cheap as we could, and everyone's sitting there on headphones. We walk in, and the CEO looks by, he looks out at the floor, and I'm like, yeah, it looks great, huh? Let's go to the conference room. So we head off to the conference room. We get in there, and I show him our system, what we set up to be able to handle it. We in like 2 or 3 days, we built a CRM system to handle the volume. He says, okay, Ryan, it looks good. Walks out. And I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe we pulled that off. Now we need real employees. So we start putting ads out. We start hiring employees. The calls start coming in, and our company starts taking off, starts growing like crazy. Now, you can look at that in a lot of ways. You could say, hey, Ryan, you got really lucky. You can also say that we provided really great customer service. We took care of every single person we could on the phone. You could also say that we worked hard when most people would have given up. There's a lot of ways you can look at that story, but ultimately what ended up happening is we had a nice successful run. That company became $230 on the Inc. 500, and we sold it to a private equity group within 4 years. And that was the moment that changed everything. And that's the thing that made the biggest difference. So my message here is, no matter where you're at in life, if you want to work hard, you can make your business happen. You can grow a business and make it whatever you want to happen. Okay, so if you're struggling and you're saying, man, you know what, I'm not really that motivated. I don't know if I can work that hard as you. You might just be a little crazy or obsessed with your business, whatever it is. Then find out how to get obsessed with yours. Don't be real with yourself. Ask yourself, am I really passionate about this? Is this something I really want to charge forward on? Do I really have a vision for this? Be honest with yourself and think about the things you're really passionate about, because it's very important that you're calculated in the type of business you start before you start it. So this is something I was naive about. If I could go back, that business, PC Care Support, if I could have put that effort into a couple other different types of businesses, I think I could have built a lot bigger business. But I just didn't know that. So think about, what are you passionate about? Analyze the market, the opportunity. What is it that you want to do to build this business? And put some real thought into it before you get started. It's worth, and the biggest thing I would suggest is find somebody who's doing it in the space you want to be doing it and ask them. Nobody is going to be like, when you come up to them and say, man, I really admire you. I love what you do. Can I take you to lunch? They're going to be like, yeah, man, this guy's a jerk. He admires me. He wants to take me to lunch. I mean, in my mind, the best learning I've been able to do has been from people that have been there and done that. So at different phases in your career, there's different people that are going to help you. It never ends. You always want to have that mentor. You always want to have that person that can help you. And never be too prideful to just ask somebody for help. And when you compliment them and tell them you admire what they did, most of the time, unless they're a real jerk and it's a good thing you don't work with them anyway, they're going to take a few minutes to help you out. And those people are going to know what it is you want to know about that business. So, you know, you could spend a lot of time heads down trying to analyze the market on the internet, but there's nothing like talking to somebody who's doing what you want to do. If you want to create an internet service provider, if you want to start a karate shop, walk in the door and talk to the person doing it and just ask them about the pros and cons. And if you're still passionate about it, go do it. Okay. Next one was resilience. So I think this is huge. Resilience. You've got to be able to bounce back when the hurricanes come and things get really, really hard. A lot of times when things get really hard, people start to either go in their office and go quiet, or people get very, very frustrated or angry. Staying calm and cool and collected and stay positive is important when the hard stuff comes, because guess what? Even in the businesses that I've either invested in or I've built, the one business that's been the easiest for me to be involved in, I still, right now, this very minute, we had one of the founders in the business start to steal out the back door of our business and do all kinds of funny stuff, even though it's one of the best businesses I've ever worked on. So just know this, there will come times when you're going to be pushed. There will come times when there's going to be really hard things that happen. I'm not going to tell you it's all beautiful and everything's just going to be unicorns. There's going to be some hard times when you're building the business. So let me give you a couple examples of some things I've been through. There was at one point a time when I realized at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that payroll was in about an hour, and I was about $20,000 shy on payroll. Reason I was shy, a trucking company purchased $20,000 in computers from me, and then because they were short on their payroll, they went ahead and charged the entire thing back. So the way a chargeback works is if you charge something back that you make a purchase on, that business, they reach in and take the money out of their account with no notice. They just take the money out. So here I am thinking I'm clear for payroll. Bam, they take the money out and I'm like, oh my gosh. They took $20,000 out of my small business bank account right on the day of payroll. What am I going to do? Now at that point, I could say, man, this thing is hard. This thing is brutal. I'm giving up. I can't keep doing this. This is exhausting. I could have thrown up my arms. I could have got frustrated. One of the things about being an entrepreneur is you can't go to your employees and soak about it. What are you going to do? Say, oh, I'm really short on payroll. I'm not going to be able to pay you. Do you think they want to hear that? They don't want to hear that. You can't. That's again why you need a mentor. You need somebody that is that person that's done it before you, has been through it, who goes, you got this. You got this. You can do this. That's the person you need, because you're gonna go back and you're gonna realize, what are you gonna do? Go home to your spouse and say, oh, by the way, I'm not making payroll. I'm sure that makes them feel super comfortable about what you're doing. You're not going to tell you're not going to get a great deal of comfort there. You're not going to get a great deal of comfort with your employees. What you're going to have to do is find that mentor, and you're going to have to keep your head on straight and keep going forward. So that's what I did in this situation. I talked to a friend and he said, look, this guy's committed fraud. You're going to get this money back in 90 days. But until then, what are you going to do? So we went to a whiteboard. We started whiteboard. This is when I started losing the hair on the back of my head. We started writing down on a whiteboard, here are all the things that we think we can do to make this thing happen. And as we started writing them down, one of the things that came up is we had this big cell that we could get. And it was at this rehabilitation center, and they needed like 35 computers. So I turned to the sales guy and I said, hey, get the keys, let's go. We drove over to the construction site where it was, and the CEO's out there, and he's talking to some of his workers, and I said to him, I introduced myself to him, and I said, hey, I heard you're working on this with my salesperson, you're going to buy these computers, and he says, yeah, we're going to buy it in a week, I don't have business checks on me, all I have is personal checks. Well, I spent the next hour convincing this guy to write me a personal check and then reimburse himself through the business. He wrote that check to me, and I raced to the bank, and with 1 minute before 5 o'clock, I deposited that. It hit payroll, and I walked in the next morning like a cool cat, like nothing had happened. And that's the kind of stuff that happens in entrepreneurship. Those are the times when you have to be resilient. Those are the times when you have to do something that sometimes other people aren't willing to do to build a business. And that's happened to me a lot of times. I mean, that chargeback was pretty big deal. And then being able to go get that check, that was a big blessing that we were able to get that and get things back on track. But those kinds of things will come up all the time. Even in my latest business, we had a situation where we were burning cash. We were running low on cash because we were in a hyper growth mode, and we had committed to burn a certain amount of cash because we had venture capital. And I start realizing our bank account's diminishing, but I thought, okay, we're in a good spot though. We've got enough cash till our next fundraising mode. And my CFO gets this email. And he gets an email from Ryan W. at Simplus.com, and it says, hey, I need you to wire $40,000. And he says, oh, the CEO tells me to wire this money? It seems weird. We don't have a lot of cash right now, but whatever he says. Wires the money. Guess what? That was a scam. Somebody made a domain that looked like my email, sent it to my CFO, and got him to send an email. Or got him to send a wire. So here I am, I'm like, oh my gosh, how is this happening? How am I going this far into this and this is happening? We were able to get a hold of the bank and stop the payment at the last second and get the cash back, make the payroll, and then raise the money. So even when things look prettier, even when you have millions of dollars at your disposal, there'll be times when you've got to be resilient. And it's the same thing in your personal lives, right? The way you handle things in your personal life, you know, something doesn't go right in a class, grade doesn't go right, teachers just frustrating you, you don't like their style, they're not teaching the way you like. You've got to continue to iterate yourself. You've got to just keep a positive attitude and try to just make it happen until you get to that total goal. But it's just like going to school. When you're building a business, you're going to have to be resilient at times and keep a positive attitude. Okay, a couple pieces of advice. If you want to become more resilient, I would say if you can compartmentalize your work, it's very, very, very helpful. So at times when it was really stressful, if I could just focus on one thing and say, okay, I'm going to do this even though all this other stuff is falling apart, that was really helpful because it would keep me moving in the right direction and ultimately the end goal. So a lot of times something's going wrong and you have to be able to put it aside and focus on other things to get yourself to that successful place that you want to be. So find a way to compartmentalize. This really makes a big difference. The other thing is draw on the strengths of others and make sure that you put yourself around other resilient people. It's like I talked about with mentors. I can't tell you how many times it's been nice. I have 2 mentors. It's been nice to just call them up and have them say, Ryan, you're awesome. You can do this. And it was like that's all I needed to hear. All I needed to hear was from another human being that had been successful at what I was doing. You can do this. And sometimes that's all you need to be resilient. You just need that person. Never be too prideful to find that person that'll help you in whatever phase of your career you're in. Okay. The next piece, having a positive attitude, was huge. Now, one of the people that responded to the survey said entrepreneurs at times can almost be stupid positive. And so I heard that quote and I was like, what does he mean by stupid positive? Be stupid positive. Well, I think what he was saying is at times you may have such an optimistic outlook on what you can do that other people are going to tell you you're crazy. Other people are going to tell you you can't do it. You know, that kind of stuff, it may be the rogue psychology of being an entrepreneur. That kind of stuff jacked me up. It fueled me. Those kinds of people that were telling me, you can't do this. That's not what you can do with your life. You know what? Those are the kinds of people that I thought of when I was struggling and building the business. I was like, man, I cannot wait to do this thing and show this person that they're so wrong about me and what I can accomplish. I have a friend who's an investor in our business. That you guys ever see those Skull Candy headphones? He was the CEO of Skull Candy Headphones based out of Park City, Utah. And he built it into a $350 million company. He was one of the youngest CEOs on the publicly traded stock market. And he built the business, and I told him, I said, what fuels you? What makes you great? Why are you so successful? What makes you different than other people? And he goes, you know, I graduated from school and I was on the front cover of a major magazine for being a graduate of Harvard University and being unemployed. And they came and they interviewed him, and he thought it was this big, really cool thing, and they got the one shot of him with his head down like this, all depressed. And they plastered it everywhere. And then he went and he started working for the skateboard shop type business in Park City, Utah, building this little headphone company. And his big shop friends came in from banks laughing at him, saying, whoa, you know, we're working at these banks and you're still making these headphones? You're doing these headphones? He just kept putting in his head, Yep, mental note. Yep, that's what you're saying. You use that to fuel you and build and do something great. There's always going to be those people. Now, one thing to caution you, the majority of the time when somebody tells you you can't do something, it's a reflection of themselves and what they can't do. And the majority of the time, they have not done what it is that you want to do. How often has the person telling you can't do it, the person that's done it? Almost never. So you have to realize, where is this advice coming from, and is this a reflection of them or me? And you really need to think about that, because you're going to have a lot of people attack you when you say you're going to do these big dreams. When you want to go create something or do something, there's the crab bucket mentality. There's always somebody that's going to grab you and pull you down. And you have to make sure that you surround yourself with the people and keep the positive attitude you need to be successful. It's important that you find other people that dream big like you do. You have to find those people, because there are so many people out there that want to pull you down. It's ridiculous. They're everywhere. So you have to make sure that you find those people and you take their advice, the people that have made it, not the people that are in a situation where they're frustrated, because they're going to tell you things that aren't going to be helpful to you. Okay, one of the biggest things I think that creates momentum and having a positive attitude is gratitude. You guys may have heard that, you know, that having a rock in your pocket and every time you touch it, you think of something you're grateful for. I can't tell you, the key to being a positive person, the key to really seeing the world in a different light is gratitude. Just being grateful for everything that you have. Being grateful is a humongous, I think it just kicks off all the right emotions to create a positive person that you want to be around. It's all about the gratitude for every little thing you have in your life. That's very, very important, I think. The other thing is perspective. Now, let me give you two sides of this. Go back to when I was building that business and the guy stole $20,000 to me, and I was running and I was on the back of a pickup truck having this guy write a personal check so I could get it to the bank. That kind of situation was very stressful. It was difficult, right? You fast forward, and I'm raising a seed round for my company. And I've raised so far at this point was $4.1 million. $4.1 million. And I was waiting on the last $50,000 to come wiring through. And I was so frustrated. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was getting so mad. And I finally stopped and I was like, wait a minute, Ryan. 5 years ago, you were on the back of a pickup truck trying to desperately get a guy to write a personal check for you to make payroll. Now you're all frustrated about getting $50,000 more when you have 4.1 in your bank in a funding round? Get a grip. Think about it a little bit. So my advice to you is stop and think about the situation and say, is this life-threatening? Am I still going to eat when I get home? Because you can get so wrapped up in what you're doing and get so frustrated that sometimes you can over-exaggerate the problem. So one of the sayings I love is, if it's a good idea today, it'll be a better idea tomorrow. Take 24 hours, think about it, sit on it, and really analyze, is this really that big of a problem? Because a lot of times for me, something that I have to say to myself, is this a third world problem? Is this a first world problem? Is this really life-threatening? Because I was getting so wrapped up in this, and it really isn't that big of a problem. So just remember, a lot of times, the key to keeping a positive attitude is perspective. Keep the right perspective. Remember where you're at. Remember how blessed we are to live in this incredible country, and we have so much opportunity, right? There's so much opportunity for us to get after our dreams, and we need to remember those things when things get difficult or tough, and keep the perspective. Picking who you associate with. So again, I think that not only your founders, but your employees. One of the biggest perks of being an entrepreneur is, guess what? You get to pick who works for you, right? You get to come in every day with the people you love to be around, or the people you want to work with, right? So remember that when you're thinking about the people you're hiring, one of the biggest measurements for me in hiring is attitude. Sometimes I will actually hire people that I know have a little bit less experience, but I feel like their hustle and their attitude and their desire to be great will overcome it. So a lot of times people go, well, why didn't you look at my resume? Well, I just glanced at it, I saw it. I don't know if it's the most relevant thing in making a decision on hiring you. I understand that you have the skill set, but now are you the kind of person I want to work with? Do you have the kind of attitude that lifts other people? Are you the kind of person that we're going to build a $50 million company together because you're resilient and you have that positive attitude and you lift the rest of the team around you? So those are the things you have to think about, and one of the exciting parts about being an entrepreneur is you get to walk in every day and just work with the people you love to work with. Okay, last one is passion. So I talked a lot about work ethic. I talked about having a positive attitude. I talked about having a big vision. All this is important, but it all is centered around one big thing. You have to be passionate about what it is you're doing. Because guess what? Are you going to work really hard if you're not passionate about it? Are you going to have a big vision if you're not passionate about it? Are you going to have a positive attitude when things get really crappy if it's like, man, I didn't even really want to do this anyway. I was just doing it for the money. That's not going to work. Guess what? Doing it for the money in most of the cases will not be the thing that drives you. Most people need more than that. They need something bigger, something special, something that's meaningful to them personally. So, you know, I don't know what that is in your life, but you need to think about, what is it that you really want? Is it a lifestyle? Is it taking care of people in your family? Is it a charity? Something that will move you in the inside to make a difference. If it's not the business and the difference it will make, the outcome of the business, what will that be that will make you passionate? That will move you to do something. So you have to think about, okay, either this business is going to create something in my life that I'm passionate about, or the model that I'm working on is going to make a difference in the world. We're going to change something. It's going to have a social impact or whatever it is. But you have to be analyzing those things, because from building businesses, one thing I know is if it's not there, it's not there. There's a reason there's so many businesses that fail, and it's because people have the wrong motives. A lot of times the motives are wrong around the business. So take a hard look at what your motives are. And this goes back to what I was saying about stillness. Take the time to think about it. Think about what it is you're passionate about, what really gets your heart pumping, and what's going to make a difference in your life. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Okay, so define the issues that you feel are really important, and then the environment you're in makes a big difference, and I've covered those too. I want to tell you a story, kind of a real life story about being passionate. So in my current business, I'm very, very passionate about what we do and how we're going to do it. And so as I'm raising money, I can barely sit down, and as I'm talking to my employees, they know I'm jacked up. There's no like, hey, does our CEO really want to build this company? Does our CEO really think this is a cool thing? Does our CEO, you know, a lot of times if you think about places you work, you may wonder, like, does this person even really care? Is there something more to this? And so you really, really have to have that like all-time real strong passion for what it is you're doing. So I was, and this is kind of a recent story, but I was building the company, and I was working on a little side project. And it was a software company I was starting to get really excited about. And what I didn't realize is I only had one person working on it, even though I had all these other employees working on the core business. But by having that one little software project, what happened is my employees, a lot of them started to wonder, well, if this is such a great business, Ryan's so passionate about it, why is he fiddling with this other thing over here? And what happens is if you don't create that clarity for your employees and you're not passionate, they start, how can they get behind it? They can't. And so what really happened is I had to shut the project down. And it had created a lot of revenue. It was really a sexy product. I could have raised a lot of money. But ultimately what I knew is I had to commit to my one vision. I had to be very passionate about it. And one of the things that's hard for entrepreneurs is a lot of times we can be fairly ADD. There's a lot of problems we want to solve. There's a lot of things we want to accomplish. But if you don't focus on one, then you can't really make that ultimate big difference. Now, Michael Jordan was a great player, but the reason Michael Jordan's considered the best is because Michael Jordan made his teams great and he won games. And every time he went to the finals, he won. Because he made everyone around him, he elevated the whole team, and they won together. And so when you're trying to win, if Michael Jordan would have been 1 foot out and 1 foot in, it would have been hard for him to win those games. His team knew that he was a competitor, and he came to play every day, and he had that passion. And I think that it's important that your competitors see that passion. A lot of times your competition's going to look at you, and when they meet you and they talk to you, they're going to be thinking in their head, am I going to join this person? Am I going to take this person? What's it going to be? And when they meet me, I want them to think, I've got to get on his ship. I've got to make it onto his ship. He's got to be the guy that buys me, because he's the guy that's going to take this to the next level. He's the one that's really passionate about it. Okay, so let's go through, recap real quick. The 5 traits that we found that made the biggest difference. Have a humongous vision. What's your big, hairy, audacious goal? This is the recap, the notes. Big, hairy, audacious goal. Think about it. Interview yourself as if you're on 60 Minutes and you're telling the world what it is you did. Number 2, there's no way around it. You have to be a grinder, a hustler. You have to make it happen. You cannot make it without hard work, and hard work will carry you. The last thing is resilience. You have to keep positive no matter what is happening around you. And then a positive attitude is critical to a successful entrepreneur, almost to the level of stupid positive. Don't let people tell you you can't do whatever it is your dream is. And the last thing is work on a business you're passionate about. And my book has a lot more details and a lot of this stuff that you can read about. You guys, it was awesome. Thanks for having me. I think we're going to open to Q&A.
Well, if you're interested, this is the book, and had a chance to skim through it. It's really quite impressive. 2,600 people responding to survey is a lot of folks to analyze. This is available for purchase if anybody wants it, and I can tell you that 25 have already been bought. Do you have any questions for Ryan?
Yep.
Your company, Simplus, is partnered with Salesforce.
Yes.
And today they had a 6% drop, or 6.5% drop, and the reason the CEO gave, Mark Benioff gave, was because of execution difficulties. Comments on that, or can you?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So they're in their vertical, or within their business, the space that's growing the very fastest is called quote to cash. It's a part of your business where you configure, price, quote, and bill a customer. That's the space we play in. So we have a niche, and it's actually their business that's performing the best is the one that we have picked to be the market leader in. So despite that, they've also seen major growth in the division that we're a part of. So, but that's one of the risks you have of being a partner of another larger organization, is they can heavily impact your business, and you have to diversify your lead sources and where you get business from. We can't just get business from Salesforce for that very reason. So we have partnerships with private equity groups and other businesses to diversify our risk.
So do you have any more partnerships lined up similar to Stillbridge now that they've been bought out by Salesforce?
Yeah, so that was an awesome thing. You talk about sometimes being lucky. So here we go. We partner with this other small SaaS company, and we say, you sell the software, we'll implement it. We'll install it. And they're this small business, and we look at this executive team, and we think these are the kind of guys that are going to build a huge company. And all of a sudden, Steelbrick gets acquired. The CEO does one demo with the CEO of Salesforce, and he turns around and sends an LOI for $360 million to buy the business. So then it goes from 50 salespeople sending us referrals to now 6,000 at Salesforce. So the reason I just raised this round of capital that we'll announce in a couple weeks is so that we can staff up to handle the volume of business now that Steelbrick is a part of Salesforce.com. But that was one of those fortunate things where we were lucky, but then we have to seize the moment. We see a huge opportunity as an entrepreneur. Now you got to build the momentum behind it and get after it. There was 8 other companies, competitors of ours, but they weren't able to raise the money from Salesforce to be able to sustain the growth to handle all the business.
When you were first starting out, you got the call from the man that wanted to buy your company. Mm-hmm. You were down and out. What made you, what flipped the switch that was like, wait, I could partner with this guy, not...
It's because I knew that if he actually saw the business, he wouldn't buy it. I knew that it was so small and it wasn't valuable. So then the next thought I had is, here I have this huge opportunity, how do I seize it? What do I do? So it was really analyzing and saying, okay, I may not be able to seize the opportunity he placed right in front of me, but what's the secondary opportunity?
How do you define the line of using your employees to get to your vision and also making them stable in their own business?
Oh, such a good question. So there's a couple areas to that. One, the first piece of advice is from the top down, it's hard to carry a vision out. It has to be from the bottom up. So you have to feel it as the employee. You have to want to be committed to it. And that's why I talked about I broke my employees up and we did the thing where they did 60 minutes. They came up with the vision. And I had them all pitch it and present it. I just listened. And then when they came to me and said, this is it, I said, man, that's awesome. Let's do it. So it was, they had possession of it and they felt like it was important. Now, to the second piece of your question, work-life balance. That's going to be based on the culture of the organization that you're working at, right? So you have to decide what those values are. Let me give you a great example. I worked for a company who said one of their core values was work hard, play hard. So they had ping pong tables in the office. So people would pick up the ping pong table and start playing, and you know what would happen immediately? The CEO would look at them like, oh. And you know what message that sent to the employees? When they said their core value was work hard, play hard, but then as soon as somebody started doing it, the CEO starts giving them a bad look, what happens? The employee immediately, there's distrust there. They start to say, wait a second, you're saying our core value, what you're telling the world, our mission statement, and then you're doing exactly the opposite. So if one of my core values in my business is work-life balance, and I tell my employees, I truly want you to be balanced, even though I may work very, very hard, I need to be careful with how I do that. So I may say, reward people who actually leave at 5. I may say, hey, go enjoy your family. I'm really glad you're leaving at 5. So it comes down to the CEO and the leadership and what they're committed to. Are they committed to work-life balance or are they not? Because they just need to be honest about what that is. If that's a core value of your business, then you need to say so. Otherwise, so part of the interview process, when you're interviewing, I think it's critical that you ask those questions. What are your values? What is your culture? If they can't answer what their culture is, I'd be a little afraid. Because to me, the culture is what drives the business. In my company, the key values are critical thinking, accountability, and we're underdogs. We are totally the underdogs that want to win and conquer the big guys. And so we get in a big deal where we're selling against Deloitte, we want to beat those guys because we're underdogs. When I talk about critical thinking, I brought in the Jeopardy champion to speak at our company in 2 weeks to talk about what it means to be a critical thinker. As a CEO, if I say that's what our mission, if I say that's our values, I have to be committed to it and live it. So, the work-life balance thing, if that's what the employer says and then they're doing the opposite, I would leave, I would quit. It's a bad place to be. Good, great, that's a really good question.
Questions? More questions?
Why did you choose Salt Lake City?
Why do I live in Salt Lake City?
Why did you choose Salt Lake City?
Choose Salt Lake City. I grew up in Philadelphia. But Salt Lake City has, for tech, the unemployment rate's like 2 or 3%. It's a very educated workforce, and the cost of living is low. It's a phenomenal place for a startup. They're also, look, for example, there's a program called the Bridge Program, and I got $3,000 for every employee I hired. They do, and it was free money from the state for growth of jobs. So they're very aggressive in helping startups. It's a great environment to start a company in. So that's one of the big reasons I like Salt Lake City. We have offices in 5 other cities though, but Salt Lake's our main headquarters. Go ahead.
Looking back, what is the one thing that you think of the most that keeps pushing you to keep growing more and push harder in the future with your business?
So I have things I want to do. I want to retire early, and I have social things that I want to do in the world. And there's a lot of things. One of them is homelessness. I think there's a lot of major cities in America that have a huge issue with homelessness. So one of the things our employees do is we spend once a quarter. We leave at noon and we go to the soup kitchen and we feed people. And that's because that's one of our core values is giving back. So I have to back it up. If I say we're going to give back and I put that in my mission statement, it's real pretty on the wall, I have to live it. So that's one of the things that's important to me. So there's different causes, philanthropy things that I want to do. It's the money part, I think, it creates freedom and options in your life, but in reality, who you are now, it only amplifies it. The money, and it's not like it's going to change who you are one day. It's just going to amplify who you are today. So to me, you've got to have something bigger than money that you want to do with the world. That's what drives me. Good question.
I heard an interesting question one time, Ryan. It was a simple question. Are you rich, or you just have a lot of money?
I'm not asking you. No. But what I'm thinking is yeah, there's a big difference between rich and wealthy. Do you have friendships? Do you have health? Do you have people that you enjoy being around? Because there's a lot of rich guys that are super, super lonely and not happy. I'm sure you've met a lot of them. You get, especially in an airport. Lately, there's been a lot of unhappy rich people. So, I mean, you have to have a lot of facets in your life to be truly wealthy. Wrapping it? Okay. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.